Well, and I think there's something that I had a revelation about recently, actually, Lindsay. For my podcast used to be called Fit in Faith, okay, for years. And FIT, which you have an acronym, you have a concept of the grit equation. We're going to get into that in a minute. When you talked about grace, I was like, oh, we got to talk about grit and grace. It stood for founders, innovators, and trailblazers. And I feel like I'm constantly being asked to go first. Like I'm constantly like, okay, Tamra, go out front. You're leading again. Go out front here. You're leading again. Whether it was like being the first to come to know Christ in my family and leading like your mom to Christ and your siblings to Christ. And that was really hard. And then leading your husband to Christ in a whole new sanctified way. And that is, I always felt like, gosh, Lord, like, why do I always have to lead? I just want to be the follower today. Can somebody lead me? And so I was having this conversation because someone was like, Tamara, you're such a trailblazer. You just blaze that trail, keep going. And I was tired. I'm like, I don't want to do that. And so I prayed and the Lord was like, I love that you think you're a trailblazer, but I actually went first. Like you don't lead yourself. I lead you. And when you lead yourself, you are going to feel like you're in the thicket with a machete trying to knock the path down. But if you are following me, I've already paved the way. And it was like oh, you're right. And this just happened. So like, this is a thing of sanctification where you're constantly recognizing even words that we use can deter us from having the revelation of Christ because we're trying to do it in our own flesh, because that's what society is doing. Everyone around us is. So this is what doing it against the way of the world and actually following him looks like. So it was relieving. I was like, oh yeah, you're right. I don't have to do this by myself. And it doesn't have to be as hard as I make it out to be, or it's perceived to be. So yeah, I just wanted to drop that nugget as a revelation for others too. Like, yes, it's going to feel lonely, but he's always with you and he's always before you.
That's so good. So much freedom in that.
Yes, completely. So let's talk about grit. Let's talk about that. And what does that equation look like for life? And where did this emerge?
Yeah. I as I was building this program, it was, a lot of, I'm thankful for coaches in my life. So, in business, and I mean, as a former athlete, you were on a team, you had a coach, or, whether you're an athlete or not, maybe you're a highly competitive woman who, always strived for doing your best in whatever it was. And a lot of times we had a guide helping us. And so that's why I love getting to be a coach for those highly driven women now. So as I was building out this program, and the coach that I have is very firm in her faith and was really encouraging on doing it with the Lord. And so the thing was, as I was building this out, I think when we try to do things, I know when we try to do things on our own, especially in business, when we come to a point of questioning, what in the world are we doing here? Why are we putting ourselves through this? If we have put our trust and really have sought the Lord in the very beginning, we can go back to those and back to that moment in those tough times of, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And so without that, the enemy is just gonna keep pummeling us. But the thing is, that word grit just kept coming to my mind. And so, I was like, we're gonna go all in with this. And so I talk about, the G is growth. And so it's not just about what you achieve, it's about who we're becoming in the process. Like I talked about earlier, whatever we're going through, how are we going through it and learning from it? And so that can be the foundation for the transformation from athlete to leader, and just really growing through things. And then the R, resilience. And so it's the capacity to withstand or recover quickly from difficulties. So, just not just staying stuck, but we're going to build that toughness and that resilience to move forward and be better in the future. And I remember, a time when I was competing in rodeo, I just kept placing fifth. And the thing, so you want to place top 10 each weekend. I won't go into the details of placing.
Oh, cool. But, I'm like, I can't even imagine you in rodeo. I'm like, that's awesome. It's bad to
Oh,
vote,
it's a
y'all.
blast. I just kept placing middle of the road and I was so frustrated. I texted my dad. I was like, what in the world is going on? Like, I've got to get past this hump. And he was like, no, like, not that you can't get better, but you're doing great and just keep staying in there, keep sticking with it. And, by the end of the year, I ended up making it to nationals that year. And to me, that was such a great sign of like that resilience to just keep going and doing the right things and not just like, well, this isn't going well, and just throwing everything, and just quitting. So
100%.
I was really thankful for that. And then the I's intentionality. So purposefulness, how are we intentionally connecting with the Lord? How are we intentionally pursuing goals or meaning or fulfillment in life? All those things that we want. How are we intentionally doing that? So, and then tenacity, it's just the quality of being determined and, again, just that grit to keep moving forward. And it's interesting, according to Forbes, tenacity is like, it's this fierce blend between determination, persistence, and grit. And for leaders in their organizations, it's an attribute that can mean the difference between failure and success, or taking a team from doing all right to thriving. And so that's what I love to do, is help those former athletes or highly competitive women to go from meh, just life is just like,
Yeah.
And that's so we can all feel that at times, but like taking those, individuals from, I don't feel any purpose, thriving. So that's kind of the basis of what I teach from, and it's been fun.
I watched because I found out that you also did basketball. For those who were like, "What college sport did she play?"
Yeah.
So basketball and rodeo, like this is not your typical chica like cheerleading. No offense, I love cheerleading as well, but I watched the movie Sweetwater last night. Have you ever seen this?
No, I
Oh my
haven't.
gosh, you have to watch it. It's on Angel Studios, and it's about the Clifton Sweetwater, who was like the first African American to get into the NBA. And he was a part of the Harlem Globetrotters back when that first started. And I found out that they actually plucked these guys out of like middle Illinois farms, basically, and they put them and said that they were from Harlem in New York so that they could have a connection to the big city and they could play at Madison Square Garden against all of the white guys. And it was just such a cool concept. And to hear that and that evolution, obviously we know from a racial discrimination perspective, that was a constant pushback. But when the door was open, because he was so tenacious, like he had such grit and had vision, like I'm going to do this thing, which is, I think, a huge part of grit. It's exciting to know that we can break barriers that man themselves will create. One, because God is the only one who can give us that access point. We know this, but not everyone, most people don't have that tenacity because the world just kind of suppresses us to like status quo, right? It's like right here is good enough. And maybe like you were saying, that 5 is kind of where society like hangs out. They realize there's people ahead of them and they're glad that there's people behind them. And they're like, I'm doing pretty well in comparison, because that's what we're doing. We're comparing ourselves to everyone else. I'll stay right here. I'm comfortable. And there's no comfort in grit, right? Like you've got to, there's that key, that little bit of like press a little forward, press a little forward, press a little forward.